Young Chuck wants to become a software engineer, but he's wasting his time. He's lost, overwhelmed with too much information, and he doesn't know what to do. He sees his friends finding jobs, people online earning $100,000 or more as developers, but he's just stuck. The market is brutal. AI is taking over. This is when the last code bender comes to help. The last code bender is a top 1% developer. He understands that code and AI are tools to reach his goals, to generate wealth, to become free. He relates to young Chuck because he used to be in the same spot as him. But the difference is that he figured out a game plan, a strategy to stand out in the market, to create his own path. This is the code bender way. I'm gonna give you the fastest way that I know to learn to code and become a software engineer in this brutal market. First, who am I? My name is Zaurbek. I'm a senior software engineer at an AI startup in New York City. I work on top of the Empire State Building, and I gave up to code 3 times before I could make it work, before I found out a strategy that actually changed everything for me. And this is what I'm going to share with you right now. So this video is going to be structured in 3 different parts. Number 1, we need to learn how to code fast. Number 2, I want to teach you how to get interviews at top companies. And number 3 is the last step, how to ace those interviews to land $100,000 or more on job offers. So the first part, phase 1, how to learn to code fast. The complete roadmap, if you're looking for a full stack developer position, you need to learn those technologies. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the command line, React, Git, Node.js, PostgreSQL, and then some bonus things like OpenAI API, because that's super trending right now, and Next.js, also super trending framework right now. So this is like the foundation of what you need to learn. I have created a free roadmap that you guys can use. So if you go here, for example, if you go on lastcodebender.com, I'm going to open it right now for you. If you come here, you enter your email, you're going to get access to a free roadmap. This is the roadmap that you see right here, this roadmap. It's free. Sign up. You'll get this, but then I'll keep emailing you also some interesting resources that I'm creating. So feel free to sign up. Module 1 is extremely important. So many people miss this step, but it's crucial. This is the reason why 90% of people who start learning how to code online by themselves, they just literally give up. And same thing in college. Most people who sign up for computer science, they literally give up because they don't have the mindset to succeed as a developer. They haven't figured out the reason why they want to code, what is their goal, and how they're going to succeed at it. That's why it's crucial that you go over those steps. So if you open each of those cards here, you'll see there are questions for you to prepare. Take a bit of time to do it because trust me, it's going to save you so much more time down the line. If you spend, for example, just a day or 2 days to answer those questions before actually starting to learn to code, it's going to be a game changer for you. Next, you're going to move to the first module where you're actually going to be coding is HTML and CSS. The methodology that I recommend, the one that is the most effective in my eyes, out of every different methodology that I've seen, out of all the people that I've talked to, is a project-based learning. So you don't want to just learn the theory and then start coding. You want to have a project that drives your learning. So what I recommend you guys do is right now, pick a project that you want to be working on. Pick something that you would love to see in the world, that you would love to build. Even if you don't know how to code, even if you don't know how to make it happen. But try to think about something that you could potentially achieve that would be exciting for you. And use this as a driving force. So for example, let's say you love using ChatGPT, and let's say you love watching like anime, you love watching Dragon Ball Z, for example. So you want to build a ChatGPT version that is focused on Dragon Ball Z and only answers questions about it, and is focused on like generating images and stuff like that just for Dragon Ball Z. That's your goal. That's like a passion project. And maybe even down the line you can make money with, who knows, probably not because it's copyrighted, but maybe there is a way you could take a little pivot to create something. But right now, just focus on, you have this project that you want to build. How can you make it happen? So the first thing you need is you need to create a blank page, right, for your project. You just want to have like a blank page with a domain name, just some basic information and some nice styling. That's when you need to learn HTML and CSS. That's the first problem you want to solve, the first obstacle. You learn HTML and CSS just to get you to that first step. It's like you're climbing a mountain. You're taking the first step. Here you will see that whenever you open a card, there will be a link to a free course. So I recommend you do that. It's Code Academy. You'll see that it's the same resource throughout the roadmap. It's always Code Academy. It's the best resource so far that I know of for interactive learning. The other resources also that are good, but this one is the one I recommend you to get started on this. Then once you have built that basic page, you want to add a little bit of dynamic elements. You want to add maybe buttons and forms and a little bit of interactions on your website. That's when you need to learn JavaScript. But then maybe you want to refactor it to be more dynamic as an app. Then you learn React. And then later on down the line, you want to add maybe like a backend. You want to add the ability for people to sign up and save the data for the things they create. So then you need to learn a backend language like Node.js and a database like PostgreSQL. And the last step, module 10, this is when you're going to learn how to use AI. And this is when you're going to learn to build the real functionality that you want in your like ChatGPT, Dragon Ball Z clone. It's this module. This one is crucial. I highly recommend doing it because most roadmaps that you're going to see online, they only focus on the first 9 steps. Rarely you will see that this step is mentioned because it's just brand new. It's so new that a lot of people haven't adapted their roadmaps yet. So I highly recommend you start learning AI and build a portfolio of AI projects. It's extremely important. And here I've actually added some ideas of AI projects that you can build. So for example, you have 5 different ideas here. Teach me how to code as if I was 5 years old. It's like a chatbot, a speech to code converter, an Elon Musk chatbot. They're basically a bunch of different ideas. And then you can use these ideas as reference to build other ones. But I highly recommend you going through this. And if you finish this roadmap, reach out to me. Send me an email. I've added like a little surprise here. Send me an email and I'm gonna give you something if you actually manage to complete that full roadmap. Here I actually have a couple of ideas of AI projects that you guys can build. If you check out my channel, I have a few videos where I taught some beginners how to build AI apps. This is just a few of the apps that I liked that my students built. There is a Wall Street Bets GPT. So it's literally just like a chatbot that is trained on Wall Street Bets data to provide you like financial advice. Then you have RecipePal. So RecipePal is an app that helps you create like personalized meal plans for you based on like ingredients that you have. You have Task Wizard. That's an app that allows you to create tasks for yourself, things that you need to finish, and then the AI will basically generate steps and it will break it down into like very actionable like 10-minute tasks that you can do. Then you have Interview GPT. So this is an app that helps you prepare for your technical interviews. It's actually interesting because we're gonna cover interviews in this video as well, but this is like a nice app that you can build. There is this Twitter viral tweet generator basically, or like X post generators. I don't know how you call it now, but this app basically you have like a text field, you enter the tweet that you want to write, and then it's going to rate it for you. It's going to say out of 10 like what is the quality of this tweet, and it's going to provide you suggestions on how to improve it. So it's interesting for like content creators. And then the last app here is like a QR code artistic generator. So you provide a URL for like a website, and then you provide a description of like what you want the QR code to be like, and then it's going to generate this kind of like artistic QR code. You can make it look like a pizza or something like that, or like a city or whatever. This one, the example here is actually a little bit basic. Just took like a bad screenshot, but it can generate some really cool stuff. So I gave you indications on how to build apps for free, and I give you a few different ideas of AI apps that you can build. But if you want to go a lot more in depth into this, if you want to get like a step-by-step guide where I literally guide you through how to build that app, I give you feedback. You can enter a private community with me. We can have like group calls every week or on a bi-weekly cadence. Then join my private network. It's lastcommando.com/bootcamp. I highly recommend it. If you want to grow in your career, if you want to talk about how to like land interviews, how to just make more money in general as a programmer, and how to stay on top of the market, I recommend you join it. It's in pre-order right now. This means that if you order now, you're going to get a big discount. So check it out. Now we're going to get into phase 2. Once you have learned how to code, once you follow that roadmap and you go through it and you build those projects, those portfolios, you're ready to apply for jobs. And we are targeting not just any jobs, we're targeting the high paying jobs, right? We want to get the best. Those are going to learn a lot and those are going to earn a lot. This is what we're targeting. Right now, maybe you already know this, maybe you already noticed, but the market is brutal. We see like past 2 years, the number of tech layoffs has been absolutely insane. We're talking about numbers like hundreds of thousands of people being laid off. This means that you need a strategy. You cannot do what everyone else is doing because there's a huge amount of people in the market. It's saturated, especially at the beginner level, especially like at the junior developer level, it's saturated. So companies, they give preference to like mid-level or senior engineers now. This means that it's a struggle for you as a young developer coming up. It's going to be very difficult unless you do something different. If you do what everyone else is doing, it's going to be brutal. If you go a different path, then you have chances of succeeding. People are struggling. Everyone is applying to the same position, and this makes competition extremely fierce. So this is what I was talking about. We're going to go do what other people don't do. The smart strategy is that you're not going to just focus on any random company. You will only focus on one specific type of company, and that's startups who recently raised. So let me repeat this. You only focus on startups who raised money recently. Ideally like a Series A or Series B startup. The reason why is because those startups, since they just raise money, it means that they're in a phase of hyper growth. And this means that they're going to start actively hiring. There's no startup who raise a lot of money and then they don't start hiring after. It doesn't happen. Every startup, when they get money, they want to use that money for growth. And for software companies, one of the biggest leverage of growth is just you hire more people because you already have ideas of what you want to build, but you just need more people to build it. So they're going to start actively hiring and you can slide in right at the moment when they need you the most. So it's a very strategic moment when you're going to approach them. Those startups usually have product market fit. After they have raised, they have a good trajectory for growth. They will offer a good salary package with bonus and stocks because they want to hire like good talent. You will learn a ton. Interviews are usually easier compared to big tech. It's less competitive because there's less people that come in, and then you usually don't have things like lead code and stuff like that. They're less difficult from that perspective. It doesn't mean that it's easy. Like, don't think that I'm saying that this is easy. It's not easy at all. it's also very difficult. Like whenever you want to get a good position at a good company that pays you well, they're not going to give it to you like easily, right? Because it's always a competition, no matter what. What I mean though is that you have higher chances of doing this strategy compared to doing something else. That's for sure. So that's why I'm recommending those startups who recently raised Series A or Series B. That's ideal for you. But you can go lower if you cannot find that. That's also fine. Like I started my career in a seed stage startup. So we're like 7 engineers. I was one of the first engineers to join. Like 7 employees, sorry, not 7 engineers. We're 3 engineers, 7 employees in the company in total. And it was seed stage. And it gave me a lot of experience. And then I went on later in my career to grow and like earn better salaries at better positions. But that's step 1. Step 2, now you need to find those companies, right? You know who you're targeting, but you need to find exactly who are the startups who recently raised. I recommend you check Crunchbase. So Crunchbase is this database of companies. Then you have a lot of information about different companies and you can filter. That's what's interesting. You can filter based on companies who raised under 1 year ago. So within this year, you can check all the companies that raised money and you can filter based on the type of raise, if it's Series A or Series B. Just so you understand, Series B is a company that usually has a good product market fit, good growth, and a Series B is bigger in volume. We talk about like $20 million, $50 million. It can go up to more actually, but it's like a significant amount already. I recommend you select the best 100 companies based on the industry in your area of interest, because you're not going to be interested in all the companies there. You'll see there are like thousands of companies, literally. Here, if you look at the screenshot, there's companies that raised within a year a Series A or Series B, there's 4,812 companies. So it's a lot of companies. Ideally, you want to filter it based on industry, based on where you want to work, and then you can select the top 100 companies or more, but start with top 100 and then you can go from there. Step 3, you're going to apply to their job postings. So you're going to open every single company, you're going to find the job postings that they have, and you're going to apply to the relevant position that they have. Also apply even if you don't fit the experience. My very first job, I applied to a position. I was straight out of college, right? Or I was still in college. It was my last year. I applied to a position for a mid-level engineer who had 3 to 4 years of experience. They were not looking for a junior. It was a startup. They needed engineers who can actually work, who have some experience, and they were not looking for a junior at all. But I was like, man, I'm so interested by what the startup is doing. It's like perfect. It's literally what I want to do. It fits the types of projects that I was working on before. Let me just try and let's see what happens. Like, it doesn't cost anything from just trying. So I emailed them. I sent them a resume, I applied to the job portal, and then I got a message back from a recruiter. And he asked me a few additional questions because he was curious why I applied, And I answered those questions. He was like, okay, actually, let's try to schedule a call and see what happens. We called together, we discussed, he liked me. He said, okay, I'm going to send you to a call with with the engineer, the lead engineer in our team. And then so on and so forth. That's how I started getting those interviews. And then I landed a position in that company. That's why don't think that if you don't have the experience, you should not apply. Try it anyways. You need to figure out ways to stand out. The market is brutal. You need to do things that are unconventional. That's just the way to go. So apply even if you don't fit. Don't apply to a CTO position or a director of engineering, because that doesn't make any sense. But apply if there is a mid-level engineer that requires 2 years of experience or something like this. Still apply for it, because startups, what you need to understand is they're extremely flexible just by the nature of what a startup is. So they can change their requirements literally on the fly based on the candidate. Literally, I've seen it happen countless times. They can literally change their requirements. That's why don't believe too much what they tell you in the job description, in the requirements. Still apply. That's my recommendation for you. Next thing is point number 4. What you want to do is after you have applied on the job portal. So this is what everyone else is doing, right? Here, you're not different from anyone else. You just apply to those companies. The difference is that you're targeting those very specific startups, but you're still applying to the job portal like hundreds of maybe other candidates are doing. That's why you don't stop there. Everyone else will stop at just applying there. You go the step further. You find engineering managers on LinkedIn or recruiters who work at that company, and you DM them. You try to connect with them and you add a little note. Ideally, those who have a hiring status on their profile, that's the best. You see this guy here, he works at OpenAI, and he, on his status, he has, we are hiring. So this is perfect. I would reach out to him, you send him a connection, you add a little note, and you add a message hey, Jonathan, that's his name. I'm interested in a job at OpenAI, or I'm interested in this growth engineering job at OpenAI. I just had a few questions about working there. Do you mind if I send them over? And you say I saw that you're working there for a while and it's great what you do. The questions are short, I promise. Something like that. Something where you explain your intent, you explain why you're reaching out, you explain why you're reaching out to him in particular and not anyone else. And then you make sure that it's short so that he doesn't think that, okay, this guy, I'm going to add him and it's going to like messaging me 100 different questions. Make sure that he thinks it's a low time commitment and it looks very genuine and personalized. The last thing you want to do is something that is ultra generic, that looks like you're a spam bot that is just adding people in masses. You want to make it look a little bit personalized, or as personalized as you can, actually. That's gonna increase your chances. So as a summary, this is the strategy. Number one, you focus on startups who raised recently. Don't focus on startups who raised like 10 years ago. Focus on startups who raised recently, because it's a sign that they'll be actively hiring. Either they have started actively hiring, either they will start soon. So you can just slide in the perfect sweet moment when they need you the most. It's going to be like a very nice match. I recommend you use Crunchbase as a tool to find those companies. You apply on their job postings. You apply to do that for at least 100 companies, at least 100. Because just the nature of the market right now, you need to go for volume, especially if you're like a junior level. And then you don't stop there. You reach out to managers on LinkedIn and you have like this personalized message for them. And you try to start a discussion, which ultimately, ideally will lead to an interview. Because if you say that you're interested in the job, like they're going to look at your profile and then invite you for an interview. What I truly recommend you do is this strategy, you might believe actually that this is too much. It's maybe not worth it because it's time consuming, right? It's easier to apply, instead of applying to 100 companies where you apply and find managers on LinkedIn and DM them, maybe in that same amount of time, you could apply to like 300 companies, right? It's possible. But the reality is you need to think about effectiveness, because I know people, they have applied to literally 2,000 companies. 2,000 companies for 2 years and they're still looking for jobs. I know multiple people like this. The problem is if you're not efficient in your approach, you could apply even to 10,000 companies. It's going to be the same result every time because you're doing the same thing all over again. And at one moment, you need to realize that if something doesn't work, you need to change it and you need to upgrade it and you need to figure out a way to be more effective. Because the reality is if you're super effective, you won't even need 100 companies. But I'm saying 100 because you're not going to be the most effective at the very start. It's going to take a little bit of time. So you kind of need that volume. But this strategy that I explained to you, trust me, it's worth it. It's going to be the best return on investment in terms of time. Imagine if you do this for 100 people, right? So you've DM'd 100 people on LinkedIn. You get 30 replies. Also, by the way, 100 people, that's the maximum limit on LinkedIn per week. Also, just so you know, like you might saturate if I think it's like 20 per day. You can send 20 connection requests per day and 100 per week. I think it's something like this in total. But anyways, you can spread out across like a few weeks if you get a problem. But you reach out to 100 people, you're gonna get maybe like 30 replies or something like that. From those 30 replies, maybe if you communicate well, you might, and if you have a good profile, so you went through all the steps that I explained, you have a good profile, then you can get maybe 5 to 10 interviews. And then from those interviews, ideally you will land an offer at one of those companies. That's kind of like the process. That's kind of, you think about it as a conversion funnel of the effort that you put in, the investment that you put in, and then it's going to give you that return. So I highly recommend this strategy. But for it to work, what you need is you need a good resume and you need a good LinkedIn profile. That's crucial. It's very, very important that you have that. So we're going to look into this right now. The master resume blueprint template. So I've actually been giving coaching calls to a few of you about like how to craft a good resume, LinkedIn profile, how to apply for jobs, how to actually implement this strategy like in practice. All right, I'm going to give you a little crash course on resumes. Listen up because this is very important. So I'm going to take the 2 resumes that I've helped them improve. Those are not perfect, but you'll see there are a couple of interesting things that you can take notes of. So I'm going to say what they do well in this improved version and where there's still a room for further improvements. So I'm going to start with Billy. He's a front-end developer. He's based in Chicago. Here I've just hidden some personal information, but I like the order of sections. So this is very important. You want to structure information in the order that is the most relevant information at the top. So first you start with work experience, then education, then projects, and then skills. I'm not a big fan of the 2-column layout. I think a 1-column layout is better, in my opinion, because it's just easier to read, but 2-column layout can also work. For work experience, if I start here, I see the first thing that I can comment is I have no idea what novatech.com is. So I would actually flip the order. I would first say the role. So in big, I'll put the role first in bold, and then I'll put the company. Because this is what, as a recruiter, this is what I want to know, right? Like recruiters, they only care about the most relevant information and they want to see, okay, like we have a job description and we're searching for people who match that job description and who will be successful for that role. They just want to understand that you have good experience and that you can actually code and get things done, right? So that's all. So you want to highlight in the work experience that you have relevant experience for the position that you're applying to. Here, the thing is, in general, I recommend 3 to 5 bullet points per experience and start always the bullet points with a power verb. So here you have it. That's good. You have like built or created e-commerce website. I would just try to add a little bit more of impact. What did you do specifically? For example, if you just say I created an e-commerce website for people sell their stuff. Okay, this is, you need to fix the English here. But the most important thing is I would actually add impact there. So for example, I say I implemented or I like I coded an e-commerce app with 10,000 products in the database, for example, right? Because then this gives an idea of scale. Like, is it, because if I just read this, I have no idea. Is it a project that you build in one day? Is it something that you deployed and that you have people using? Is it a big project with like a full stack where you had a database and you build a front end, you build plugins and you build like authentication and a couple of different things? I have no idea. If I just read this, I literally think like, okay, maybe was it like a small one-day project? Like, what was it? I have no idea. And you have to think from this perspective because recruiters, they have no idea who you are and what you do. So they're going to assume not the worst, but they're not going to assume anything positive about you if you don't say it. Then experience. Okay, you have this. So it's not in computer science. All right. But you have online courses in coding. If you have certificates, maybe I would add, like, instead of saying online course, I would add like certifications. Personal projects, e-commerce website, chat web app, blog web app. Those are very good projects. That's nice. The only thing that is missing is it's not using power verbs. Like, you're more describing what it is. I would again try to add impact. Like whenever you can, try to make it more technical and explain more what you were able to achieve and what you built. Then you have skills, languages. Okay, all right. I'm going to show you the other resume now from Adham in Palestine. So this one, I actually like the layout a lot more. It's the same layout that I use for my resume. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments. I can send it to you. This one, I like it because it's one column. It's very easy to read. It's spaced out. It's like visually pleasing. It's like a minimalistic design. So here Adham, he's still a student, so he's graduating. This means that he doesn't have work experience. So you skip, if you don't have work experience, just skip that section, right? Add education on top and then add projects. That's what he did. That's perfect. You add the most relevant courses. That's good. If you have anything that is special around your education, like maybe you're in the top 5% of your class or something like this, add it also. That's another way to stand out. And then you add the project section. Here, I recommend like 3 to 4 projects. So that's good, especially if you don't have a work experience. Ideally, try to compensate it on the number of projects. So if you have 4 like solid projects, that's very good. You add the name of the project, you try to make it very comprehensible for a recruiter. You add the technologies you build, and then you add like 3 to 5 maximum bullet points. Always start with a power verb. That's something he's missing actually. Because if you see here, website utilize a deep neural network. I'm like, all right, the website utilizes this, but did you build it? What did you do there exactly, you know? Then I would rephrase it instead to say like, implemented a deep neural network and then to like optimize X, Y, and Z, or to get X, Y, and Z, you know? Same here, for example. Here you say user input their blood pressure readings into the website. But that's like, that doesn't tell me what you build exactly. Instead, if you said implemented feature to collect blood pressure readings from users and analyze it in the backend, for example, you know, then it makes it a lot more concrete and I can understand what you implemented, because instead of having like a passive sentence, you make it active, and that's a lot more powerful. That's what I recommend for all of them. And then below you have the skills, which I really like the way this is done, because you want to break it down, right? Like there's skills, there's code, languages and frameworks that you know, but then there are tools that you know how to use, and then there's languages like English or Arabic or like whatever language, French, like whatever language you know. This is like a good template for a resume. I'm gonna go over now some guidelines. What you need to understand is that in general, recruiters, they will spend 10 seconds or even less per resume. Literally, sometimes they'll spend even like 5 seconds and then they'll decide if they want to skip or they want to continue reading. They only spend more time on a resume if there is something interesting, right? So a recruiter sees a resume and from the very beginning, the top section, they see that you don't have the right experience or like it's completely confusing, it's not clear what you do. Then they're going to literally skip and then they're going to move to the next person because they have a sufficient amount of candidates in general. That's why you want to capture their attention quickly, and as you capture their attention, they're going to stay longer with you because they keep getting interested in like what is that you're doing. You want to keep the resume to 1 page maximum. I've seen a lot of beginners make 2 pages and I don't get it. Me as a senior engineer, I'm able to fit the most relevant experience I have in 1 page. I know people who are a lot more experienced than me, who have a lot more years of experience, they're still able to fit in 1 page. If you're a beginner, there's no reason why you cannot fit everything in 1 page. You will have to deprioritize some things, right? You'll have to cut some projects. Like I'm not mentioning every project that I've ever built on my resume because some are outdated, some are not the most impressive. So you want to keep in that 1 page, you want to keep only the most relevant experience projects that you did. The sections in order I mentioned before, you have work experience first, then education, then projects, then skills. Work experience, if you don't have any, then just skip it. Then just keep education, projects, and skills. In that case, just keep those 3. 3 to 5 bullet points per experience and projects. Always no more than that, because if it's less than that, it's too little. If it's more than that, it's too much. 3 to 5 is like a sweet spot. Then you start each point with a power verb, because you want to make it active, right? You don't want to sound passive. Like your project, describe your project as website that utilizes features to do this. Like I have no idea what you did actually in this project, and you're just describing what it is, but it's passive, it's weak, it's not impactful. Instead, use power verbs. You said like, I built a new onboarding system, or I built a new onboarding flow for an app, and I optimized conversions by 20%. That's super interesting. That's clear. I'm like, okay, dang, like this dude, he rebuilt the onboarding system. He probably changed a few things to get the conversion improved. So he's an engineer who thinks about impact and numbers. That's a lot more powerful than someone who says like, our website had a nice designed onboarding system. You're like, what is that, you know? So always use power verbs and make it like active. And the last part is you focus on the impact. You focus on numbers. Even if you don't know exactly, try to provide an estimation. Like I said, the example, if you refactor the onboarding and you improve the conversion rate by 20%, you might not know exactly how much, or you improve like the loading speed by 30%. Try to provide estimations even if you don't know exactly, because sometimes it's hard to estimate numbers or to give like exact numbers. At least provide estimates of what you think is reasonable, because then you just make it a lot more powerful versus just talking in like generic marketing terms, you know? So now, once you have followed all the steps that I've laid out, you have followed phase 1, which is learning how to code fast. Phase 2, which is the right strategy to start getting interviews. Now we're going into phase 3, which is how to ace those interviews to land $100K or plus job offers. So we're going to see this right now. We're going to look into the types of interviews that exist. So first, to understand the type of interviews, you have the behavioral interview. This one is like honestly the simplest. This is where you really are supposed to shine. They ask you questions about you, your experience, why did you apply for this position. It has usually multiple rounds because it's kind of diluted across different steps of the interview process. The first round is with your recruiter. So whenever you apply for a job, a recruiter is going to call you, then you speak on the phone or like via Zoom call, and then you just ask those basic questions. So you need to be ready to answer those. Whenever you talk to a manager or like in the very final stage where you talk to like the CEO of a company, for example, if it's like a startup or something, they're going to also cover a little bit of that as well, because every step of the interview that you get, they're always going to ask you to introduce yourself. They're going to ask you some very basic questions about you. So you want to really nail them and be very confident answering them. So this is the first type of interviews, the behavioral type. Then we're moving to the technical type. And there are 3 different types of interviews, and companies utilize different ones depending on just the company. There is a technical screen. That's the interview where there's no actual coding. They just ask you about technical concepts. That's all. Like they ask you about how React works, for example, if you're like applying for a full stack position or front end position. They ask about just different concepts like hooks. If it's full stack, they will ask you about some back-end questions like what are SQL joins and stuff like that. This actually, you know what's funny is for the technical screen, then you have the lead code style of interviews. This is like the most dreaded type of interviews. You guys know about it. It's the ones where it's like about data structures and algorithms. It's like usually 50-minute coding challenges. No one likes those. And then you have the projects. Projects is basically they ask you to build a little app in like a few hours or a weekend, and they give you very specific criteria that you need to fulfill. And then once you're done building it, you just send it to them and then they review it. So this is like the different types of interviews. For me, when I was starting up, I didn't know anything about those things. I kind of knew that there was like a behavioral interview. They ask you questions about who you are, etc. But I had no idea about the technical ones. I thought literally like I was, the stage when I started applying for jobs, I was like a decent coder. Or in my mind, I thought I was like, I was pretty decent. I had like built like a few projects. I thought like this was enough. I didn't rehearse any technical thing before my first interview. And I remember it was a lead code challenge actually that I got. I had no idea what lead code was. Like I didn't even know this existed. I was completely like new to all of those things because the thing is I switched from electrical engineering to computer science. So it was brand new for me. And I remember I got like the first challenge, I received it and I was like, okay, like this looks like just a basic coding challenge. I'm going to be able to solve it in like, I remember it was like 40 or 50 minutes. Very quickly I realized that it's actually not that simple. It's actually very complicated. And it was a lead code easy question. Even though it was lead code easy, I struggled like crazy to finish it. And I think at the end I got like only 2 out of 10 test cases covered. And I made like the most brutal, like brute force approach. And I could only solve 2 of 10 test cases. So yeah, basically I got completely destroyed, but this was a learning lesson to help me do better. So you have an overview of what the type of interview like styles are. Now we're gonna see how to nail the behavioral interview, and then we're gonna go into the technical one. And you'll see, like I'm gonna give you like a few tips for it. The behavioral is really the easiest. This is when you have to shine, honestly. If you do very well here and they really like you, it's not gonna guarantee you a job offer, obviously, because you still need to be technically good. But trust me, it's gonna be a very big difference if they have candidates that are pretty similar. If they like you more, they're gonna pick you. So behavioral has a very important step, and this is the one that is That starts everything. It starts the discussion. So you really have to shine here. Prepare all the questions in advance, keep it short and concise, and focus on impact. Focus on what helps you stand out compared to the rest of the people. Focus on what's gonna make you be memorable compared to other people. Know everything that you have on your resume and be ready to talk about it, because as soon as you add something in your resume, you have to realize that it's fair game for them to ask you about it. Know everything there. And the types of questions is typical, like, can you tell me more about yourself, the projects that you worked on, what did you learn work on those projects? Is those types of questions. You can literally Google like behavioral questions for software engineers and you'll have like a list. Usually it's nothing too complicated, but just you need to be comfortable answering those questions, and you don't want to be like mumbling and rumbling and talking about like random crap, right? Like you want to be very specific and high quality, focus on impact. This is what you want. So for example, if they ask you, introduce yourself, it's nice if you can actually mention things that help you stand out compared to other people. Like if you just say, oh, like I'm a student, or like I just like a year or two of experience and I'm looking for a software engineer position and I'm very motivated. Like this is a horrible answer, because this doesn't tell me anything. I already know you applied for a software engineering position. I know that this is what you want. I've seen your resume, like the experience you had roughly, right? And then I know, like I assume you're motivated if you're applying here. So this doesn't tell me anything. Instead, I want proofs. Like you say, okay, I have like 2 years of experience, or like I've been coding. If you're student, like I've been coding for the past 4 years. I like really love it, and I saw your company. I'm super like passionate about what you guys are doing. I build like projects. I build this AI project that gives like recommendations for like X, Y, and Z. Passionate about this thing, and this is why I've applied to your company. So you give like you try to make it super specific, and you try to give very unique things that you have achieved that are specific to you, and you try to add numbers whenever you can. So if you add numbers about the experience that you have, like the number of years of experience, if you have any numbers that you can quantify, it's kind of like a rule for resumes, right? Like when you write a resume, you try to focus on impact for every like experience that you add, and you try to focus on adding some numbers of things that you have accomplished. Same thing here. Prepare those things. The answer to every question should literally be like 3 lines long maximum. It should always be very short and concise, and then can start like a more like organic discussion from there. But yeah, this is the behavioral interview. You just want to prepare in advance, and you can literally rehearse with your friends. Like if you have a friend or like if you have a family member, literally ask them to be the interviewer, ask them to ask you those questions and answer. Like ask them to ask you, can you tell me more about yourself, right? And then you answer to them, because that's gonna help you be a lot more natural and like not stressed when you have to answer those questions in an interview. Now we're moving to the technical interview. We're going fast, bro. The first thing you're gonna get is a technical screen. Technical screen, like I said, is when they ask you like those concepts, right? Those technical concepts. I still remember, man, the first technical screen I got, it was so messed up. So it was this company, they actually did the reverse of what most like companies do. Most companies, it starts with like a call with a recruiter, then they do the technical screening, and then they ask you for a project to build over like a few days. This company did the opposite. The first thing they sent me was a project to build over the span of like a weekend. And I was like, okay. It was like one of my first interviews back then, so I didn't have like the luxury of like choosing and be like, oh no, like I'm not gonna dedicate like a lot of time to this company where I don't even know like where this is gonna go. But so I had very little like choices, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I tried to do my best. I spent the whole weekend building this app. I really did well because they liked it a lot. You see here, they said like, this is a screenshot of the email that I got from them. They're like, oh, like nice job on the challenge. I like the polished UI and clean and easy to follow Node and React code. So they liked what I did basically. They liked that the code was clean. And I was like, man, this is perfect. This is a very nice sign. Because after this, the next step is the technical screening. And then it's like a talk with like, because it's the startup, it was talk with their CEO and CTO. And then I would get the offer. So I was super pumped. I was motivated. I was like, perfect. Like if I nailed the hardest challenge, I'm gonna do well at the other one. And in the technical screen, they started asking me questions about like commands like for the terminal, about like things about SQL, the big O notation for like some algorithms. And I didn't know any of those things because I was more focused on projects, and I didn't come from a computer science background. So I didn't have some of those things that I needed for this position in particular, because they really cared more about the back end, and I was a little more front end like leaning. So I remember the interview was supposed to be 30 minutes, and halfway through the guy literally said, okay, I don't think it's gonna work for us. Like we're searching for someone else who knows those things. And I was so disappointed. I was like, no, please give me a chance. Like I can learn those things quickly. And they were like, no, we're looking for someone who already knows this. And I was so disappointed. And he literally hung up after like 15 minutes. Even though I spent an entire weekend working on the project for them, like that's it. After 15 minutes, he just hanged up on me. I was so mad, bro. Like I was extremely disappointed on myself also. But the thing is, like everything, I always say, it's all a learning experience. But you know what's interesting is right after this interview, like the next one I had, it was actually a month after, so not that soon, but I got similar questions. But the experience that I got in this interview helped me solve that other one, and that other one led me to my first 6-figure offer. So there is good in everything. You take it as it comes, learn from it, and inshallah, you're gonna be successful. Here, what I actually recommend you do to prepare for those types of interviews is literally you Google questions for full stack developer technical screen, and then you add the keyword GitHub, because it's going to give you like a GitHub repo of like a ton of different questions. Like there's this screenshot I've added of one example. You can check this one. It's from Indy256. You can check this repo. There are a ton of them. Check depending on the position and what you think they're going to ask. Like I would look into the job description, the technologies they list. I would try to at first understand this. And then depending on if it's a more of a front-end position, more of a back-end, or more of a full stack, you can adapt like your preparation based on that. Next comes the lead code style questions. So this is what everybody hates. Literally, it's like this meme is so relevant, bro. Like it's like you make those you solve those 500 lead code questions, and then in the interview you get that one question that you didn't prepare for. But that's life. This is just the way the industry is. You have less lead code style questions if you go to startups. So startups don't do lead code as much. It's mostly like big tech corporations. So that's why like I recommend often to people, especially given the market right now, given the layoffs in big techs, startups are increasingly becoming more attractive, especially with the new advancements in AI there. Like there's a lot of opportunities there. So it's very interesting. But yeah, lead code in general, it's all about practice. Literally, someone who's a lot smarter than you can do a lot worse than you just because you have been practicing a lot more. Like you could do a lot like better than me. I'm a senior engineer. I haven't done lead code in a while. You could do 10 times better than me because it's just literally practice. You need to rehearse those algorithms. You need to rehearse your speed at which you solve it and the speed at which you recognize like the patterns in those challenges. This is literally just practice. But I'm gonna give you some strategy, like the best strategy that I know to prepare for it. First, you need to take a course in data structures and algorithms. If you don't know it already, you need to learn it somehow, right? So you need to take a course. You can start with a free course. Don't need to go for something complicated. Find a course online and start with that. Then after that, you're gonna start with easy lead code problems. So you go on leadcode.com, filter the problems by easy difficulty. So you start with easy and then you solve them. You're gonna time box it to 45 minutes per problem, not more. 45 minutes maximum. If you get stuck earlier than this, so let's say you're trying to solve a lead code problem and you get stuck after 10 minutes, you're fully stuck and you cannot do anything, then look up the solution. But don't look up the entire solution, just look up what you need to get started. And then you try to get started. And again, next time you're stuck, try to look up the solution just to get you to the next step to get you unstuck, right? Don't look into the full solution straight up because that's how you're gonna learn the maximum amount. Once you're comfortable solving easy lead code problems within 45 minutes by yourself, so by yourself, not cheating, then you're ready to move to medium lead code problems. For medium lead code problems, is the same process all over again. You time box it to 45 minutes for each problem. You look up whenever you're stuck for more than 10 minutes, you look up whatever you need to just get unstuck, and then you repeat that process as much as you can until you get pretty comfortable solving medium problems. You don't need to solve hard problems because barely any companies ever ask like hard lead code problems. Usually it's either easy or medium. And once you're comfortable with the medium ones, you're ready for your interviews. It's basically this. And you need to do this process like 100 times. Like you need to solve at least 100 lead code problems, ideally. And then we're moving to part of the interview that I love the most. So usually startups, they're gonna have this project style interview. They're not gonna have a lead code usually. And big tech, they're not gonna have a project, they're gonna have a lead code instead of the project. That's why like I can tend to prefer startups just as a natural. I just like to work on startups more. So this is what I like to do more. This is this meme of like the Chad project developer versus the virgin lead code. So to prepare for the styles of interviews, what I like is that it's literally what you have been doing to build your resume, to build your portfolio of projects. You have been building projects to build your portfolio of projects, right? And this interview is literally just building another project. So that's why it's so like it's nice because it's way closer to what you're going to do on the job. It's way closer to what you have naturally been doing. And so it's easier to prepare. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to pick your favorite tech stack. So it's the stack that you use to building your projects in the fastest way possible. So if it's like React, Node, like whatever it is, just pick the stack that you're super comfortable with, that you have experience building projects fast, because you don't have time to waste in this in this interview step. Then you need to prepare a boilerplate template in advance. The advantage of it is that you can spin up a project super quickly. Like if you need to spend like an hour like setting up your project every time, that's way too long. You need to be able to spin up a new project in literally 30 seconds. 30 seconds you need to have an app running that is just like a boilerplate basic. There's nothing, it's just like a blank screen, but you have an app running with all the basic modules and dependencies that you need. And finally, you just practice building full stack apps. That's all. So all it is. Usually there's rarely like some trick questions. Like if you've done a few projects in full stack and you've done it by yourself, you haven't like cheated or something like this, you have literally coded by yourself, then you're going to be able to nail those interviews no problem usually. If you do the first two steps, so you have a template that is ready in advance, then you can go a lot faster. If you do all the steps, if you do the correct preparation, you should be ready to land that 100K plus offer. I hope you guys benefit from it. I also have a private network where I go more in depth into this and answer like your private questions. You can be in touch with me. Like we have a private network and then we do calls like every week. And on top of it, I teach you how to build like very interesting AI project that help you stand out in the market, how to get paid more as a developer, and a lot of interesting stuff. So I highly recommend it. It's latscodeman.com/bootcamp. Check it out. And otherwise, I recommend you check out this video next.